What happens when a group of ordinary people say yes to going beyond their comfort zones into a small, forgotten village in Ecuador? On today's episode, we're taking you behind the scenes of our latest missions trip to Las Chacras, an incredibly special place that holds a big piece of our church's heart. From meal packing here at home to building playgrounds and building relationships across cultures, this trip was filled with moments of joy, challenge, and transformation. You're going to hear stories of faith stretched, lives changed, and hope shared. Whether you've been on a missions trip before or you've never even considered it, I think by the end of this conversation, you just might want to pack a bag. Here on the Pastor's Potluck Podcast, our goal is to encourage you and maybe in the process, entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Dude, I'm all jacked up, man. We did a lap challenge around the whole building. Mm-hmm. And so we've had youth, we've had staff, we've had just anybody that wanted parents
of youth that were up here.
Yeah. And I just did mine today. And I remember looking at the winner's time and I going, it seems a little slow. Like
for a tall, skinny guy like you, yes.
Yeah, that used to enjoy running. I haven't done it in a while. And my body was telling me and screaming at me like whenever I was getting done with my run, I was just like, oh yeah, this is why I gave this up, because it stinks.
It doesn't sting when your body's used to it. But when you've not done it in a long time, it's terrible.
Yeah, I did some stretching, which I'm grateful for. I didn't do a good enough warm up, and so like it took me a good 10 minutes, like for my heart rate to come down. I'm just sitting there. I went and sat in the worship center, and I put my hand over my heart, and I said, "Not today, Lord. I got so much to do this week." I said, "We have a night of worship," and I'm like praying. I was like, "Erica's out of town. Like this is gonna like drive her mad, Lord. Today's not the day."
Yeah.
So. Yep.
Yeah.
But I beat the time.
You did. You're the champ.
I'm the champion.
The one to beat now.
There's not a whole lot of things that I like to boast about, but this one I feel pretty good about doing. Well, it's
great because you did it without the teen peer pressure that I had yesterday. Like they went
sandals.
And stood in front of my car and would not let me go. And then they found somebody that had about the same shoe size as me. And I wore this teenage kid's shoes without socks. It was wonderful putting my feet in there. But, so I can say I ran in somebody else's shoes.
Oh, dude.
Anyway.
That was a good dad joke. In your case, a mom joke, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it was.
If you'd have done like 2 or 3 laps, you could say, I've ran a mile in your shoes.
Yeah, I don't think I could actually say that because I don't know that I could do a mile. I mean, running the bases at the softball game and then running that yesterday, I'm like, no, I'm not made for this anymore. Yeah. I need to do some stuff to get better at that. But. Yep.
Aaliyah got second place.
Mm-hmm.
My time was 44 seconds. Hers was 55, so I beat her by 11 seconds. And she was wanting all the smoke. She was challenged. She's like, I got it. And I'm like, I don't think you got it. I was like, I knew that I could do it. I felt like.
Your legs are what? Like maybe a foot taller than hers?
Yeah, my stride's a little bit bigger than hers for sure.
Yes.
But I'm a little bit, I think I'm super determined in that aspect.
Listen,
I was like.
I was proud with my minute and a half.
It was good. I think Megan does deserve a redo.
She does.
Yeah, she did it in sandals and pants.
Yes. And I feel like it was more of a speed walking. Because I literally was walking and keeping up with her at the end anyway.
Oh.
But that's okay.
Did y'all just like start at different times and they just hit like the lap button or something?
No.
Oh.
They did it and then wrote it down.
Gotcha.
And then, but yeah, it was, good for you for doing it when nobody was here to pressure you into it.
Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't have wanted me to do it yesterday. I had an upset
maybe
stomach.
we'll have to try to continue this and do some fun challenges, and actually dress for it, prepare for it.
Yeah, it's like one of the things that we've always, that like all of us, I think, have been like talking about. And I think it's a great way to like challenge us to continue to, because we've focused a lot, I feel like, on our spiritual health and emotional health as a staff. And I think that's like the next thing that we are maybe knocking on the door of is like, how do we challenge each other and encourage each other to get physically healthy as well?
Yeah. And I think that's something that we're wanting to do, and several are leading the way on. And I think that, sometimes a little challenge helps get you in the mood to do it.
Yeah, my heart, as soon as I got done running, it was like, what are you doing? But that's all good. So today we're going to be talking, and I'm excited about this conversation, is the church's recent missions trip to Ecuador, Las Chacras, more specifically into our Hope Zone. And we partner alongside of an incredible organization called Kids Around the World. What is Kids Around the World? Explain that for individuals to where they can understand why we partner alongside of them.
Yeah. So Kids Around the World, originally their main mission was to bring play to kids through playgrounds. And that was like all across the globe, not just in other countries, but here in the U.S. too, because there's some low poverty areas as well that don't always have those things. And so that was their main goal. But then I want to say it was back in 2019, they launched what they were calling their Generation Hope Project, which was a way to bring hope to kids in really those very poor, in poverty communities, like in third world countries, through food, story, and play. And so they partner with another organization to do the meals that we pack. The one meal, that's the food. So it's meals, and it is within the meals, there's also vitamins to help with the nutritious aspect. Because, depending on where those meals are going to, you need the caloric intake of the rice and lentil and all that stuff, or you need the vitamin nutrition that comes with that, because they don't have necessarily a lot of variety of foods. And so, but those are given out during the story portion, which is where they teach Jesus at story clubs. They teach about the hope that God can bring through Jesus. And then, they do the playgrounds because they believe, there's something developmentally for kids within not just physical development, but imagination and that type of stuff that happens when they're able to play freely in those kind of safe places. And so it's the combination of that food, story, and play that they bring hope to these communities.
It's amazing.
And so they partner with different churches, different organizations to do these communities. And when it launched, they had a goal. I think in Ecuador was really their pilot area of where they were first starting this. Now they have them in Dominican Republic and Uganda, several other places. And they just keep surpassing their goals of what they have set. Like within the first year, they'd already hit their 3-year mark. Because it's such a well thought out, organized program. And the vision behind it's beautiful to see.
Now, this began for us at Southridge 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
January of 2022. January of 2022, Pastor Scott and I went on a vision trip to Ecuador. And
now, was the initial visit in Las Chacras?
We did get to visit Las Chacras. So what they did on the vision trip was we got to go around to several of the communities that didn't have any partnerships. So we got to visit a couple that did, to kind of see and hear from those pastors that we partner with locally there in that community. We got to hear the effects, like, and what was going on. And then we visited other communities that did not have a partnership. And, you know, you had us and several other church people, like churches and organizations there with us. And so the goal was to see, like, if you connect with any of them.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And so we did get to visit meet Pastor Vicente in Las Chacras at the original church that was on the borrowed land. We met in there. Like, I have a picture of us. We're kind of sitting in a circle inside the very small building. I mean, it may have been not much bigger than your office. Like, it was not very big at all. But I have a picture of, like, several of them talking while Pastor Vicente was sharing. And so, yeah, we got to see that. So I've gotten to see the progress of things over that time period.
Yep. For someone who hasn't been on one of these golly, both of us today.
It's okay.
We're all tired. My mind is still like running. For someone who hasn't been on one of the missions trips to Las Chacras, how would you describe Las Chacras to someone? For them to begin, you know, you don't have a picture. For them to begin to have just like a mental picture of, like, just where the state of this community is at. Yeah.
So Las Chacras is located in an area where there is a lot of flooding during the rainy season. And it's like a lot of places, you have a variety of, you know, what you're going to see as far as housing. But the majority of the housing is probably, if it's not bamboo, then it is brick, like cinder block, you know, and they have their stuff that they put to seal it and all that. But a lot of times it's dirt floors. It's that kind of thing in those homes and stuff. But it's wonderful weather, like year round. They're close to the equator, you know, so it's like mid 80s during the day, gets down lower, closer to 60s at night. They have several months of rainy season. That's like February, March, April into May. But you know, you have a variety. Some of these houses are 1 story, some are 2, some are, you know, which is surprising sometimes with the wood or the bamboo.
Yeah.
But
what about infrastructure, roads, water?
Yeah.
Like things of that nature, just to kind of like help paint a picture.
Yeah. It depends on where they're located. A lot of people are able to access water through, like, they'll take pipes like up higher in the mountains where we visited some of the homes, because Pastor Vicente has kind of gone to a couple neighboring communities to help take these things to them because they can't come down always.
Yeah.
But so through there, we literally walked down a road, and the people here at the end of the road, she had a huge, like, water container that either she'd had filled or that kind of thing. So, like, I remember on our vision trip, like, one of the communities that we went to, they had a big water tanker truck that people went to for water, and they had, like, a community leader that helped, like, manage that.
Yeah.
But so some of these people that lived higher up, they were able, like, they take almost like hoses or whatever, and they have a pump that helps pull it out from the river or the whatever water source that's close.
And stuff, yeah.
And but clean water is an issue, and so it depends on where they are and what they have access to, what their funds are available to get that water, because you'll see anything from, like, the normal, like, the 5-gallon jugs of water, like what we use here in our dispensers. You'll see some of those, like, one of the homes we went to, they had probably 10 or 12 of those sitting around.
Yeah.
Or you'll see, because the one, she was a grandmother that we talked to, her name was Susanna, and she said it's hard to get water, but she's the one that was, like, further up the road, and her husband passed away a couple years ago. And you know, her kids, like her son, who would help fund things, like, had an accident and was still in recovery from that. So, like, in that moment, that season, she's like, I really don't have access to water. Getting it is really hard for me. and I don't have the help that I used to. And so you'll see a variety of that, but it's not.
It's just very impoverished. It's what you would typically expect from maybe a third world country.
Yeah. Now, if you go into some of the towns, obviously you've got people that have a lot nicer places and that kind of thing. And so what I want to say though, is that while we're working in these communities that are like that, we don't stay in places like that. They put us up in really nice places.
Yeah.
They take us to really nice places to eat, you know, like, so your lodging and your food is very well thought out and taken care of, to where you don't have to stress about that as you go and help take care of other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say it's pretty close. They're a little bit more stable as far as things like, internet, cell service, electricity, even, because even some of the people who had like bamboo homes, it's probably not safe, but it seems like they just tap into the grid.
Oh geez.
Like if you see there's literally, when we were going through one of the towns, we were like, look at that pole, because I mean it just looked like a crazy nest of wires everywhere, and it's like, and you can see them branching off in all these different directions, and yeah, probably not the safest, but they make it work. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they use U.S. currency, so that helps with some of the stability, I think, for them, to where they're maybe a little bit ahead of some of the other third world countries that I've visited.
Yeah. Now, I remember meeting y'all at the airport at the very, very bright and early time of 5:00. And on some of the people's faces, you could see the excitement, and on some of the individuals that went on this trip, you could tell that there was some nervous feelings and stuff like that. How many people went on this trip, and how many was it their first ever missions trip?
So we had 14 on the trip, and out of that, I believe that 8 of them had never been on one.
That's amazing.
Several had never been out of the country.
Yeah. Like
even little Connor, I didn't even realize, like, he has never seen the ocean. So he got to see the Pacific Ocean. Like, it's just so cool. But so, yeah, there were a lot of things like that was cool to see.
Yeah.
People stepping out and doing those things.
Yeah, it was one of those things that was just like some of the individuals, you're like, I could see them doing this. But just people that you wouldn't expect, just really, really, really being obedient to what God had asked them to do and truly stepping out of their comfort zone. Yeah. It was just incredible. And in the days and the weeks to come, I've just been trying to connect with them and just ask them how their trip went, and just kind of pick their brain a little bit as well. But you had mentioned that something that we do is we pack meals, and this is something that happens well before we even go on the missions trip. So talk us through a little bit of like what that looks like for us as a church, because this is something that anybody can get plugged in and help out with, even just by staying here and doing that. Yeah.
So the meals that we pack help to provide for those kids in our community that are going to the story clubs.
Yeah.
And we pack them. We have to pay for them, obviously. So this is part of our yearly fees and kind of partnership with Kids Around the World, is that we pay for the discipleship that helps the story clubs continue to happen throughout the year, the training supplies, those kind of the support staff. Because like Pastor Vicente, he's not left on his own. He has a support staff person who visits with him every month, makes sure that he has what he needs, helps. They have people that help distribute, like take the meals to him that he can then distribute to the places, and that kind of thing. But so the meals that we pack, our goal again this year is to be able to provide those meals for 72 kids for the entire year, which is equivalent to about 45,000 meals.
Yeah.
And so all that together is about $17,000, a little over $17,000, almost $18,000, to be able to provide that. So, we have our golf scramble coming up. That's going to be our main fundraiser for that. However, if you feel compelled to give, you can always give towards that. But we do our meal packing here, and we do it in a couple different shifts. We've the last couple of years decided to do it on a Sunday to where you're not having to go out of your way on a day when you already got all these other things going on. You can come in on a Sunday, you can sit in a service and serve in a service. And there are things that even your younger kids can do.
Yeah.
So really like 5 and up, I mean, there's something for them to do. We've
really easy to get the family involved.
Yes, we usually bring it let the little younger kids, like the preschoolers, come over and they collar the boxes or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And something we saw when we visited the warehouse where they store the meals, which they let us know this time, which I don't think they shared this with me before, but they typically have enough meals stored to last for about 6 months. Whether, just in case something happens. If for some reason we couldn't pack at our normal time and had to push it back, or something happened with, things coming in, being able to be delivered and all of that, because that's part of the things that they have to do. We pack them here in the U.S., but they have to get to Ecuador, to Uganda, to wherever. And so they told us that they do have enough to last them 6 months to help fill in that gap if something were to happen. Yeah. Which I think brought a lot of peace of mind to me anyway, to know that, so I'm sure that that's helpful for them as well. And I don't know if that's a newer thing or what, but yeah, so we pack those yearly, and it's not necessarily our meals that go directly to there, but it's the amount that we pack that we know is getting there. But the thing that I thought was really sweet that we saw in the warehouse this time was that some kids had wrote messages on the boxes. Yeah. That were like, hey, this was packed from people who love you in, the United States, or that kind of stuff, which was cool. Yeah. And I was like, that's something that we could add to what we're doing. Yeah. They said that some people will maybe write a letter and put it in there, in the box too. And I was like, oh, cause that doesn't get flagged. If you're putting a lot of toys or something like that in there, it gets flagged. But, so it's nice for that community leader, whoever's doing it, to if they open up and there's a letter to them that's encouraging or what, it was just something a little extra that I thought, yeah, we'll definitely do that this year. But yeah, it's something that anybody could get involved in, whether whether you give, whether you serve for that event. My daughter, which now Anakin is probably old enough to help with the stickers, because you always have to put you put a sticker on it that kind of shows who packed it and when. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that's good for younger kids, because it's got the little box. You just peel it, put it on there. And so Esme, that's usually her job that she has done for the last few years that we've done this. Yeah. But it's really cool. And then we got to hand those out at a couple of the different communities, which was so cool. But
it's so cool bummed. Seeing it from start to finish. Yes. You're not part of the shipping process or with it on the plane, but you're seeing it go into the box and
packing. Yeah. Handing it to families
and seeing the joy. God almighty,
and they're
I can
so
imagine.
Excited about it. Cause I was thinking about it, cause it has lentils in the mixture, right? And lentils are something that I feel like here in the US, there's a lot of people who don't venture into lentils very much. Yeah. We like them. Anthony and I do. But we're different. But I remember someone who helps at the food pantry here saying how they had some lentils that they put in the boxes, and the people brought them back the next month because they were like, we don't like those. We don't use those. Take them back. And I thought it's such a different culture to where they're pumped about it, you know? And they don't care. Cause even sometimes it's the kid who comes up to get the meals, or sometimes it's the parent, depending on who was there and all of that. But every single one of them, nobody was ew, what's in here? Or, you know what I mean? Or let me bring you back this or whatever. No, they all took them, and they're so thankful. And I think the thing again that I think we said this last year, but the thing that, that is cool to hear about is the vitamins within it.
Yeah.
That is so crucial to most of them.
Yeah.
Visiting with one family, they had about a little girl that was probably like a year old. And what people may not know is that these meals are given from pregnancy to 14. So a mom who is pregnant or a mom who is nursing, they give meals for her too.
Yeah.
And so from the very beginning, they're able to have that nutrition where like a lot of times the mom maybe wouldn't have that much.
Yeah.
And so the baby might not have what it needs.
Yeah.
But so the one mom I was talking, I said, so were you able to use the meals like when you were pregnant, and how was that? And she said, oh, it was great. She said, that's why she's so big. Because I didn't believe that she was only one. I was like, what? Like, I think she might have been like 11 months, actually, 10 or 11 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, because my kids are all tiny. And so I joked with her. I said, well, maybe I needed those meals too when I was pregnant because my kids are tiny. And we laughed about it. But yeah, so those meals are given from pregnancy all the way up to 14.
Yeah.
As long as they're attending those story clubs and going. So
last time that you were there, before this trip, you were part of a team that went and we've got the funds to be able to purchase a playground, fly a team down there, and install it as well. I just remember seeing the pictures. I remember seeing just the open and empty and vacant piece of land right in the middle of like this almost like town square, which you would imagine for a small village, but and just seeing that be completely transformed.
because we built up.
Yeah.
Like it's not even because where it is in a flood area, they brought in dirt and rock and whatever to build it up higher, which was a crazy quick turnaround process. Like that is the one thing that I think like we were all a little bit stressed of like, how are we going to get this done in this amount of time? Because like the rock and filler, like the filler for the land was late arriving. They had literally just gotten the land a few days before.
Jeez.
Like, because it was still in, whatever. There was another location that they had that they could have used, but this was a prime location because it's right beside the school. It's a couple blocks from the church.
Yeah.
Super. And I mean, the sign that says Las Chacras, like most of these towns that you go in, there's the big letters that are like painted colorfully that say the town name, is right there. Like it's right there. And so yeah, we were nervous about, can we do this? Like, can we get it done? But the community, like the first day, nobody was really coming over and pitching in or whatever. They kind of all hanging back, watching. The second day, a few people started coming over and helping and that kind of thing. But by that third day, like we had so much help, and it was literally only because of the community that it got done.
Yeah,
like,
they started seeing the pieces go up, and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be great!" Like, I want to have I want to say that I helped.
Yes, and like, so one of the grandmothers that like she owns the little shop next door. Her name's Georgita. She was there, and she was one of the ones that I talked to that had told me like, I've prayed for this for my kids. Like I've prayed for my kids to be able to have a playground or a safe place to play. And, they're grown, but they have their kids. So we haven't stopped praying. And this is an answer to our prayers. So she always asks whenever Marlon and then whenever they go in the area, she's like, where's my American brothers and sisters? Like, when are they coming back? And so I had asked, I said, are we going to get to go down and see the playground? Because we'd passed by it multiple times. And I think like the coolest thing is I almost didn't recognize it. Yeah. Because of what they've added to it.
Oh, wow.
So they've built around where like we just had the filler land, right? And it was a hill. They've built a wall around it. They've put, like the half tires, you remember like a lot of they've done half tires that they've painted around that to help protect. So like kids won't fall over or whatever, they'll hit that instead of, they've added legitimate lights. Cause before we left, like when we did the dedication, they had actually like strung some lights and done the, getting into the electric whatever stuff, but they had strung some string lights around.
Yeah.
But they actually have like legitimate light poles.
Oh, that's so cool.
They've built benches and coverings for the benches. And so when we went by the one day and I saw not just kids playing, and I'll get emotional, not just kids playing, but I saw all these moms sitting on those benches, talking, laughing, hanging out. I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
what amazing.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
So when we stopped and saw, like, Georgita was there, and I ran up and gave her a hug and talked with her. And I was saying, look at what all you all done. And she said, yeah, she said, everyone's pitched in and helped. And then the one mom, Veronica, that I got to talk to, I asked her, she said, you know, most days that she picks her kids up from school, they just go right up because it's right there at the playground.
Yeah.
The kids play and she sits and gets to hang out and talk with the other moms. And I said, how has that helped you feel more connected and have community and support from other moms? And she was like, I didn't really have it before. She said, you know, but now, like, every day I'm getting to visit with other moms who understand what I'm going through, who are there. I've made friends. And I'm like, man, we did this with the kids in mind.
Yeah.
But what's beautiful that's happened because of it and because it's prime location is community that's being built within the parents, within the moms. And that's something that we couldn't have envisioned.
Yeah.
But that we were able to see happen and hear about, that I think is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So.
Here you go.
Yeah. Thanks.
There you go. Yeah. It's just absolutely incredible. It's like one of the things, like, I've done some missions trips, and I wish that I could go back and just see the impact on some of the building projects that we've done.
Yeah.
What they've how it has accomplished the goal that we had set it in mind, but see what God has done through just that simple act of obedience by going and just building a playground. That's so incredible to see that they said, wow, you know, because some, like, for most of us, whenever we get a gift or something like that, that's just like life-changing almost, we're like, wow, like, and we're super grateful for it. But oftentimes we don't sit there and go, okay, how can we take this and make it better?
Yeah.
I can imagine they saw the blessing and they go, okay, like, how can we make this better and fully, because if they wouldn't have built the benches, if they wouldn't have done the safety, you know, things around that, then, you know, like, we would have seen kids fall out into the road.
Yeah. I mean, they've had flooding, and that's what they said. They were like, they're actually looking, the community is coming together and they're trying to find, because what they use is like a really thin gravel on the ground for the playground. They're looking into finding something that won't get washed away when it floods.
Yeah.
And
glue.
So
I'm dead serious though. They use like, that's what landscapers use.
Yeah.
They call it pea gravel.
Yes.
Because it's the size of pea, and they just spray a glue on it.
Yeah.
I don't know what America would think of us if we went down there with like 100 gallons of glue.
I mean, listen, like, their customs already about got us this past trip, but with soccer balls. But anyway, but yeah, so they, like, it's just really cool because we were even, one of the things that we had in mind of, if we go back, we wanted to build some benches, but they had no benches available for us to build. And there's not really any room to build any additional playground equipment, like a swing set or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because it was a very limited space, but like, they have they did the benches and they've utilized it like great. Like, and I think there was one bench that I could see they'd taken like pallets and built a bench out of it, like seating out of these pallets, and painted it, like, and that kind of stuff. But I think seeing that, but also seeing, like, you probably have this on your thing about the church progress.
No.
Okay,
well, I mean, we were, but but I think that's a good segue into what we were going to get into. Because I was going to say, whenever you and Scott visited, y'all met with Pastor Vicente and kind of heard some of the financial struggles and kind of like what they were doing is they had like what some of the old school churches have. You know, they had like the today's attendance and what was given last week up on the wall.
Yeah.
And whenever y'all were there last time, y'all came across one of those signs, and super humbling. I can imagine seeing that.
Yeah. So they that first time we went, and we did see that. It was like $1 and some change was their offering for the week. And, Pastor Vicente travels in. He doesn't live super close to the community. But seeing that and then hearing how the little building they were meeting in was built on borrowed land, like a member of the church. It wasn't even owned land. So if anything were to happen, they could lose that. Mm-hmm. But Pastor Vicente was looking to buy the land beside of it. And that kind of started, when I heard Pastor Scott asking all these questions, I was like, oh, I think this is going to be our hope zone. Like, I knew it at that point because I was like, he'd been quiet at most of the places until then. And so I knew something was going on. But then, he had shared like that God had laid on his heart that we were going to buy that land and pay off their debt before we started in on ours here. And so, obviously it was a vision that was picked up very fast. Like that day when Pastor Scott shared about it, somebody gave a check to buy the land. He was able to buy the land, very quickly. Yeah. And so when we went last time, when we were walking up, I stopped and I took steps back because I was like, wait, this was where the church used to be. Yeah. Because I was walking up and I thought, oh, that looks bigger. Like not even necessarily thinking about, oh yeah, they're on new land. They probably did rebuild. Anyway, so I'm walking, I stop and I step back and I'm like, wait, this is where it used to be. And they're like, yeah. And so we go up and it's a much bigger building, but it's with bamboo, like, right. And obviously like their toilet is just like in a little building and you have to like dump the water in and that kind of thing. Yeah. And that's still currently the case, but they have everything they need to actually do an actual restroom. But this time when we went, they had told us we were going to paint and do electric in the church. And I kept thinking like, I don't know how we're going to do that. But I mean, I've seen electric in bamboo areas. So like, I'm guessing it's okay. Like, and I got the extra thick mat for the rollers for the paint and stuff like that. But I kept thinking in my mind, I was like, we're going to paint these bamboo walls. That's what was in my head. And so when we pulled up and I looked and I saw the cinder block that had been, enclosed and everything, I was like, what? Like the cinder block and the nice metal roof. I was like, what? Yeah. Because it had only been about 18 months since we were there. And it just is mind blowing for me to think that they've been able to do that with what we had seen the initial offering was. And yes, they've had growth in the church. Yeah. Like their church is growing. They have, he said probably between 65 to 80 people on a Sunday.
Holy cow.
Right?
I mean, how many people was it before? It was
when we first went, he had maybe a handful of people.
Yeah.
Because he shared with us about how he'd been praying and seeking God of whether he should stay, whether he was supposed to continue there. And he said, God, you need to speak to me in my dreams. And like, that was his prayer, like, speak to me in my dreams. Well, he said he'd woke up the one time and nothing. So he went back to sleep. And then
sounds like my kind of dude.
And then he said he saw a big hand with a one finger up, and he'd only had a couple people in the church, and he felt God told him that even if it was for one person to stay.
Yeah.
So he stayed. And so like, that impacted us so much. Cause it's like, for me, I feel like it's almost a reversal of the story with Abraham and God, when he's like, hey, what if there's this many people that are righteous within the city? Will you destroy the whole city? Even if there's this many, it goes down lower and lower and lower. And I feel like it's a reversal of like, hey, for the one, I want you to stay. Yeah. Like for the one, I will keep it safe. For the one, I want you to stay. And it's that concept that like, that's a hard thing to do and stay faithful and obedient in. Yeah. When you're putting in all your time and effort. Like he was trying to sell things and do stuff to raise the money to help add to buying that land. But Marlon had been sharing with me, like, hey, Pastor Vicente, like the conversations that he would have where he'd say, hey, Pastor Vicente, how have you been able to do this in this short amount of time? Because, and so Marlon was preparing me for what I was going to see, but I still wasn't prepared to see what I saw.
Yeah.
Because I still in my head was thinking bamboo walls.
Yeah.
And bamboo roof. Like, that's what I still had in my mind. But so when he was asked him, Pastor Vicente said, well, when Pastor Scott was down here and Southwood Church was here, they said to trust God and his promises, to stand on his promises that God provides. He said, so I've just been standing on those promises. He said, I've been standing on that promise. I've been believing that God will come through. God told me to stay. He will provide. And so when we saw that, and I was like, what? There's no way. Because, like, not even just the walls and the roof, but like the concrete floors. Like, there were 2 sections along the side that weren't concrete. But they had the concrete mix there to be able to mix and do. And so he sent me video of this past week where they were filling in the side sections. Funny. And he was wearing, so within all this, like the trip, even before the trip, what I have felt is, so our verse for the future is that Ephesians 3:20 and 21, right? That God, who is able to do infinitely above more than we could ever ask or think. That's been the thing that I've just held on to. And that's what I believe we saw within this trip, but that's what I think he's seen there. And so we had those shirts that we'd had made. We had extras that have been here forever that we took to Ecuador. So we gifted him and his wife a shirt, and I shared with them about the shirt and about how, like, hey, you said that you're standing on these promises, and I believe you're seeing this verse being played out within your church building, within your church community, within the other communities that you're traveling to. Like, God is just doing more than what we could ask or think. Yeah. Like, it was nowhere on my radar that they would have progressed that much.
Yeah.
And they have in that short amount of time. And it's different to be able to, like, to have the one thing that really compelled us to do this partnership was the long-term impact.
Yeah.
Was the ability to be able to have regular trips and pour into one area, one pastor, like, for an extended amount of time.
Yeah,
see that
true influence happens with that. It's
over
not just a
time.
flash in the pan.
Yes.
It's a constant. It's like there's been a fire that has been ignited, and at specific times throughout the year, they're getting food restocked. They're getting supplies restocked for the Storybook Club, or the Storytime Club. What do they call it? Story Club.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever.
Something club
Kids
with
story club, whatever. It's
and then there's constant communication, because I think that Pastor Vicente has added everybody in our church as a friend on Facebook.
Yes,
it's so funny. See, he sent me one, and it was like, there's like 70 mutual friends, and I'm like, oh, dude, he's getting after it. But to be able to also make those connections with individuals that have gone on these trips that maybe weren't able to come this last time, and all the new individuals this time, and connect with people that are in that community. And there's even a language barrier. The long-term impact is going to be far greater than just saying, you know what, I feel like we should go to India. I feel like we should go to Russia. I feel like we can go to all these different countries all over the world.
Yeah.
And God can move in those situations and in those scenarios. But it's just like with what we do here, we want to continue to minister to the needs of our community. Yes. And it's hard to do that if we are going to other communities that are in and around us. Like, if we put all of our time and our effort and our focus in Las Chacras and in Charleston, then we're going to see God's long-lasting impact, and people's lives are going to be drastically changed because of that. And generationally is going to be amazing because people that are getting exposed to the word and they're starting to realize, like, man, I really need this relationship with Jesus. Whenever they get older and married and start having kids, they're going to be able to teach their families about who Jesus is. It's one of those things that's just it makes sense.
Yes, it does. And because I got to actually learn more this trip about how the church started.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. So one of the home visits we did was to a woman's house named Narcissa. And they said she's actually one of the like founding members of the church. The church used to meet here in her home. And I was like, really? So in 2016, there was an earthquake that did a lot of damage. And that's when they started meeting in her home, because it was before they had, a area to meet in. Maybe he had been meeting somewhere, but there was damage or, that kind of thing. But so we began asking questions, and she shared like how she met Pastor Vicente was she had a granddaughter that she was taking care of who started having like nightmares, but she said it was nightmares where like her eyes would be open and she would like see things or whatever. So she had called her brother, who was a pastor, who then got her in contact with Pastor Vicente, who was closer, and he came and visited and prayed for her granddaughter. And after he prayed for her granddaughter stopped having the nightmares. And then they started meeting in the home. Well, Connor, sweet Connor, who's 11,
12, 13, 12.
Yeah, he's
11 or 12, because I think he's just starting to go to youth.
Yes. So he was asking the best questions on this trip. So he basically, in a very roundabout way, he basically asked her, like, hey, how did your daughter having those nightmares and like him coming in and praying, how did that affect your faith? And she said, I didn't have faith before that.
Bruh, a 12-year-old asked that question. That's so awesome.
I know. I'm like, I was challenged by like him and some of the like the other people like I'll get there, but like Pastor Vicente's willingness to go and take the gospel wherever is just a challenge. Anyway. But so Connor asked us, she says, I didn't have faith before that. She said, but we always like around here, we're taught if there's something like that going on, you seek out someone spiritual for help. So that's why I called my brother or brother-in-law, whoever it was. She said, that's why I called this person. And they did this. She said, but because of that, that's how I came to know Jesus. Yeah. And I was like, what? And so it was so cool to hear, okay, this is how, because of this, like she came to know Jesus. She opened up her home. They began meeting there for a small little community of church there before they had the building. So like to know that and know that progress of like that in less than 10 years, this thing has grown, in an area where, there was nothing. Yeah. To 80 people there. But his willingness to go, because so you have the church, like, couple blocks down from the playground, there's the playground, the school. Well, past the school, there's a road that goes up into the hills, up into like the mountain areas. And that's where he goes. It's called El Tomatal is the name of that little community. He goes up there and there's like a covered concrete area that he does a story club there because they can't often get down to the church for story club. So he started going to them because sometimes they would make it, but a lot of times they wouldn't. So he just started going to them and doing another one there to help with that. Well, because of that, about 5 to 10 minutes up the road drive, there's another place called Quebrada Grande, and that's where we did our second VBS and soccer camp, because it's close enough that those people can walk, because it's more of a flat walk than up and down the hill. Yeah. For like people who are older or have young kids, it's really hard to do. So,
especially in like rainy parts of the, I mean, it gets when super, it's raining and that kind of thing, muddy, super slick.
And so they kind of combine up there, but he does basically 3 story clubs, but all within a 10 to 15 minute drive of each other. Yeah. And he's just willing to go and do that and share and like, well, you can't come to me, I'll come to you. Like, and I think that was challenging to say, like, because I think a lot of times, you know, we want people to just come to us. But like, who are we willing to go to?
Yeah, we've got to meet people where they're at.
And so it was beautiful to see that and hear that and some of that story, and like the people in Quebrada Grande and in El Tomatal that were just like, we're so thankful that he comes here, that he comes to us, that he does this for us, for our kids. Like, and he understands. Pastor Vicente understands. He said, because they were like, are you going to continue, like kids around the world are like, are you going to continue to like do this and keep doing this? Because at his church, you know, there's probably 40 to 60 kids depending on the week. And then at this community, there's probably 20 to 30. At this community, there's like 30 or whatever. And so they're like, are you going to continue this? And he's like, as long as they'll come, yes. But he said, I believe that God's going to raise up other leaders to take these other communities over. And so I think it's like he's future minded in that of like, yeah, for now I'm doing the hard work, but I believe God's raising up other people that are going to take this on and take it over. And I think like that's where sometimes I think we get wrapped up in that, oh, it's hard, this is a lot of extra work, right? But we're focused on that rather than, but if I continue in this, God's gonna be faithful and bring somebody along to help me with this work, or you know, or take it over. And I think like we have to be future minded in those types of things too.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so amazing what you see, what's happening out of this little community that we partnered with, and how surrounding villages and communities are being impacted by what we've done in Las Chacras with, like you said, in those other areas that Pastor Vicente is going to. And I know that this trip is always special because you get to go and experience it with your husband. Something that is amazing to see is just family members going together. We saw 3 generations go on this last trip, which was incredible. We saw a grandfather, his daughter, and then his granddaughter. We saw boyfriend and girlfriend go, which was amazing. It's just so
father-son.
Father-son. We saw people even fighting over to adopt this one young guy that went. But was there a moment for you that just stood out? It could be something big, could be something small, conversation. I know that whole trip is, there's so much excitement. There's so much information. It's like information overload. There's a lot of physical activity because, like you said, you went and did some painting to help out with Pastor Vicente's church, and some electrical stuff and
water filters,
VBS soccer camps. You know, and but is there a moment that looking back on it, you're like, wow, that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life?
There were many moments like that, which that's what I was just like updating and checking my journal from it before we started this. There were many, I think. So one of the things that I'll just say overall was really awesome. Like you were talking about the team that went, when we were in Miami. So I think 2 days before we left, God woke me up at 3:00 in the morning and gave me devotions for the team while we were there. Okay. Nice. Which I'm already like, I'm preaching. I knew I was preaching at the church service on that Sunday at Pastor Vicente's church, which I was incredibly anxious about, because it's just, you don't want to go in as an American and like preach something in the way that we would hear that just doesn't culturally translate. You know what I mean?
You ever get tired on social media and they're like, what?
Which obviously a lot of them have it.
But
yes. Yeah. So I was incredibly nervous about that, you know, and I hadn't even finished that. And I'm like thinking, oh, God's waking me up because I need to finish this. No, he gives me all these devotions for the team. Like in the first one, I knew where I was supposed to do it, when I was supposed to, so I was supposed to do it in the Miami airport and all that. I was like, and Anthony was even like, you're going to do this here now? And I'm like, Yeah.
That's what God said, bruh. Leave me alone.
Which I didn't know until like we're getting on the plane and everything, that there were 2 other mission teams going to Ecuador, and they were on the same flight as us. They were both medical missions, but they both 2 different people from both teams ended up, because it was pretty loud when I started, but I used the Ephesians scripture and shared how, like, I think everybody has a part to play. Like, you may not know exactly what it is that you're coming for yet, but you will by the end of it. And so, anyway, I shared this devotion. I heard, as I'm going, like, I hear people quiet down and some people looking, and I'm like, okay, God, you told me to do this. This is really awkward. But anyway, but two different people from, like, one from each of those teams ended up sharing with me that they listened, that their team listened. Thank you for doing that. Like, whatever. And so it's like, there were several moments where I was nervous or anxious to share or do what I knew I was supposed to, but there was confirmation for it each time. And so that was one confirmation of, like, okay, I was supposed to do this here, because it wasn't just for our team. It was for these other teams too.
Yeah, and it's difficult sharing, like, scripture and devotion outside of the 4 walls of the building church. Yeah. And so, especially in the airport, whenever there's so much commotion in Miami's airport.
But it was crazy because it quieted down, and I was like, oh gosh, because I thought either these people are like, what is this person doing? Or, like, you know, that was what was going through my head. But then, like, at the church that Sunday, I'm still like, it's during worship. I think that we'll get there. It's during worship. I'm bawling because, you know, they were singing How Great Thou Art. Mm-hmm. And so you hear them singing in Spanish. You heard our people singing in English. And I could just close my eyes, and I was like, this is heaven on earth. Like, this is a moment where I think the kingdom is overlapping, and it's beautiful. Yes. But I'm sitting there, like, thinking, okay, this is an amazing moment. How is what I'm supposed to share even needed? Like, you know what I mean? I'm sitting there like, whatever. Well, the guy that's helping to lead worship, he starts talking in between, and he doesn't even go to their church. He just came to help out that day. Starts talking about something, and I heard because I know some words, like I know a decent amount, but enough to kind of pick up what you're saying, but not enough to feel like I'm confident to speak it or catch everything. Yeah. But so I hear the words for, like, the vine and fruit, and I'm like, I'm looking, I kind of do this number, and our 2 translators that help lead us, like, look at me, they point at me, and they're like, the vine and the fruit, he's talking about it. And I'm like, I thought so. So it was like, but in that, it was like, okay, this is confirmation. I am supposed to share this message. And then that Monday night, it's like, we're finishing painting in the church. We have a few hours before, like maybe an hour before we leave to go get ready for dinner. And then we're going to visit the church in town in Puerto Viejo that is the Kids Around the World staff. They attend there, and the main guys, Steve and Jackie, that kind of lead things there, it's her parents that are the pastors of this church, and it's like a more modern church. You know, they do contemporary Christian music, like, but so I'm up on the ladder painting, and I'm told that they break into 3 different age groups, and they want one of us to teach each group. They were like, you can do the principal group, which is like older teens and up. And I'm like, this is in a few hours. I didn't prepare for this. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. And then Mario comes over. He's like, hey, what are you going to share? Because he was kind of my partner in translating the whole week. And I had given him notes for my sermon for Sunday to help him know kind of where I was headed, because it helps him as we do it to kind of, even if he can't, because some words don't translate well. Yeah. He gets the idea of it across. And so, so he's asking me, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm still on the ladder. He's asking me this. I'm like, give me a little bit. I'll let you know. Like, I'll have it by dinner. So thankfully, in a thing that I can only describe was God, a couple weeks ago, I had uploaded, like, all my messages that I keep on my computer. I had just put them in my personal Google Drive, and we had access to them. So I'm looking and I'm praying, and I'm like, God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I felt led to do the message that I had done from Romans 8 for Beauty for Ashes, where I share a lot of my story, but I talk about how Jesus didn't just die to forgive us of our sins, but he died to set us free free from fear, free from shame, free from guilt, condemnation, like all those things.
Yeah.
So we're there, and I'm like real nervous because I don't know when I'm going up. I don't know how they end. I don't know anything about this church or this service and how things go. And they invite me up, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, we're doing this. And so we're doing it, preaching, everything's going. Mario has a few troubles with word, but there's another guy over here who can translate, and he's helping him with words. Like, it's just everything's happening. I get to the end though, and I'm like, I feel within my spirit that I need to ask people to come forward if they need Jesus or if they need set free from something. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I share my story, which has abuse and whatever in it. And I'm just sitting there like, I feel this, but I don't know if it's okay. And I look at him and I said, hey, I didn't plan this, but can we do this? And he's like, he kind of looks around and he's like, sure. And I'm like, okay. So I start, saying what I want them to come up for, and nobody's really moving, but I just keep going. I have no idea what I even said here. But then people start moving, and the whole front of that church got full. It's probably 40, 50 people came up at least. Jeez. And I'm like, of course crying, because I'm like, okay. So I pray over them, and then I come down. They sing another song. The pastor goes up and he shares, and I can hear him. I can pick up on enough words that he's saying stuff like, hey, just receive this. Like, what you had is no more. Like, because I keep hearing him say, no mas, no, like, whatever. And I keep hearing him. And then his wife goes up. After they kind of settle down, his wife goes up, and she's looking at me and starts sharing. And so Mario starts translating what she's saying. And she shares with me how as I was talking about my dad, that God opened her heart and brought a picture of her mind of her dad. Her dad was an alcoholic. Yeah. And she never really talked about it. She never really shared. And he brought up, it was like picture after picture in front of her of these moments where he abused her, where he beat her, where all these things that she had not healed from, that she had not surrendered, and that had still kept her in bondage. And so she shared, that within that, God allowed her to, like, her heart to be open so she could be healed from that. And she shared with everyone, she said, most of us think about Jesus being there to heal us or do things for us in the beginning for salvation, but we forget that he wants to heal us and restore things in our lives the rest of the time. And so it was just a beautiful moment. Like, she's crying, I'm crying, like, all of that, where it was like, thank you, God, for allowing me the opportunity, but like, just giving confirmation after confirmation, because even before I went up, I mean, I was still doubting it, but they sang a song about being free in Christ. Like, I could see those words and understand what they were saying. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to preach. And, but like, that was just a beautiful, didn't even know that any of that was going to happen thing. But because of obedience and God's faithfulness, like, he came through and he did something cool. And several people afterwards, I couldn't understand all of them, but several people were thankful. And Marlon said, like, hey, like, thank you, because a lot of people really needed what you did tonight. Yeah. And it's not because of me, obviously, it's because of God, but through my obedience. And so I think some of it is just like being confident in sharing the gospel in the way that he has compelled me or given me to do, and just doing it. Yeah. And to stop, like, I don't know, many times throughout the trip, I was like, why do I doubt? Why do I doubt? Why do I, feel this way? Why do I not realize like how amazing and good God is? Because there were just so many opportunities like that came up, like, where I felt like by the end of it, they're just like, hey, there's this person on the side of the road. Do you want to share Jesus with them? Like, I don't know. Yeah. But just seeing those moments of God coming through, and even before the trip ever happened, I had randomly said and joked, more so joked than prayed about it. It would be really cool if we could give every kid a soccer ball. Yeah. And we're talking, we were figuring there'd be 105 kids between the two camps initially. Well, that Thursday when we deflated them and counted them, we had 105 balls. Exactly.
Yeah.
The next day, dude shows up with 30 to 40 more soccer balls. Didn't understand why. Well, Pastor Vicente is out there giving out all the invites to people, and more people arrive. And so, like, you know, we needed more balls. But just seeing those things, if it's like, man, why do we even doubt what he can do?
Yeah.
Like, why not put it out there and ask? Like, we're in this prayer series.
So many times for us, like, the issue has grabbed our attention, and our eyes should always be focused on Jesus, because his faithfulness has been so good. His provision has been so incredible.
Yeah.
And we know these aspects about who he is, but we allow for the issue. I think that it's just, we get so caught up in the drama of everything. Yeah. We have people that are just like, you know, like, we're obsessed with famous people dying, and we're obsessed with all these different things, you know, just anything that can grab our attention, and for us to be in shock and in disbelief and everything else. And so whenever we see something that's not going the way that we have had it planned, God is already like 4,000 steps in front of us, and he's already put it on somebody else's heart to show up with extra soccer balls whenever he knew that there would be 140 kids and not 105.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. You know, it's like I think that's one of the reasons why the Israelites were just wandering around in the desert for so stinking long, is because they were just like, oh gosh, I can't believe we're doing this. And then he's like, dude, I just like delivered y'all. Like, we're moving in the direction.
One of those, like, I think one of the biggest things that God has kind of been putting on me is like, you have not because you ask not. Like, from James, you know, like, I could have kept my mouth quiet and like not even mentioned that thought or whatever, but it was like put out there verbally, and God's like, let me show you what I can do. And then, I mean, so many other things of like, hey, you need me to show up tonight and speak through you? Sure. Like, ask me, I'll do it. Like, but I think like God is the God of the universe. Like, he can show up here in Charleston, West Virginia. He can show up in Las Chacras, Ecuador. He can show up in Puerto Viejo. He can show up on a soccer field with young men, older boys that need Jesus and speak to them. You know, like, the gospel is the gospel anywhere. And I think I was so caught up and nervous about me messing up when I'm like, yo, it is scripture. It is God's word. Like, it doesn't return void. Like, if you just speak his word, and he's going to do what he can do. Like,
it's just one of those things. Like, I want to be a part of I want to be in the boat of seeing the miraculous and trusting God to do that. I've experienced it once on a missions trip, and I saw his provision come in a way that it just defies all logic. And experiencing that was like a really life-changing moment. But at the same time, I'm back to old faulty Jared. And I want to experience those things. And I think that the more that I talk about it, the more that I pray about it, the more that I want it to become just like, okay, like my nerves are, and my anxious, thoughts and my worries are just completely out of the window, because I just want to look at a situation and I go, I know God's going to do it. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to talk about it, and just get out of the way and let God do what he's going to do. But one of the things that we have done here on the Pastor's Potluck is whenever we're talking through some of Scott's messages and stuff like that, is we give people practical next steps and what that looks like. Sometimes it's application on the Bible. Sometimes it's just it could be anything. What's a practical next step for someone who maybe wants to go on a trip, or maybe there's a practical next step for individuals that can't necessarily travel, but they want to be a part of what we are doing and what God is doing. More importantly, what God is doing in Las Chacras.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, next steps for those individuals.
Yeah. Well, it's going to sound really elementary, but it starts and ends with prayer. One, it really does begin and end with that. Because there were several that were like, I wasn't sure if I was wanting to come on this trip because of me or because it was something God wanted me to do. And I'm like, a lot of times those things align. Like, he wants to grant you the desires of your heart. And I think that in those times, like, he calls us to go. He calls us, to go into the world and do these things. And so, like, it aligns with the mission, right? And so, like, that to me is a mute point. Like, but it costs money.
Start saving.
It costs money. And so start saving, start thinking of who you can ask to help you with the funds for this trip. Because it is not cheap to fly, to another country, to fly overseas, to stay, to do these things. There's project money involved depending on what you do. I have a lot of goals for future trips. I think we could easily do some kind of medical and dental trip. In the future. I think we could, the soccer camp, VBS type stuff was easy and simple to do. That's obviously a win and a no-brainer. There's opportunity. Like, I have a goal to do a playground in that other community in Quebrada Grande, because they cannot go down and visit, like, and use that playground really. And so having a playground there that is in their community, accessible for them, would be amazing. And to me, it's under that umbrella of Vicente, because he's the one that goes there. So I feel like that's still our community. But so there's a lot of opportunities for different skill sets in the future. But there is that financial part to it. And so there is that, whether you are wanting to go on the trip or you don't want to go, but you want to help in some way, that financial aspect is big. And so, maybe you have access to some type of fundraiser system that really works well, like that could be outside of our church, within the community, or something like that. Like, there's a lot of different ways. And so I would like to say there's no real bad ideas when it comes to those types of things. Like, I'll entertain anything just about, because there were several people who, the financial aspect was a burden and was really the biggest thing kind of holding them back. And, one person in particular, I said to them, look, God will make it. Like, if you really believe that God is leading you to come on this trip, God will make a way. And so then I found out that person hadn't actually signed up for the trip yet through Kids Around the World. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And they told me what was going on. And I was like, I didn't even message that person back that day. I waited, I prayed. And that next morning I woke up and remembered someone who had said, hey, if you need anybody, you have anybody that needs help, let me know. I contacted that person, and that person was like, I will pay for the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And so then I was able to be like, look, what did I tell you? What did I tell you in the beginning?
Yeah.
If God wants you to go, he'll make a way. I'll say that. However, that doesn't negate the fact that if you believe you are supposed to go, there's still a responsibility on you to help try to make it happen. Yes, God will make a way. Like, God, if he calls you, will provide.
Yeah,
we see that over and over again, but there is an effort on your part that needs to take place. I mean, and that person had done some of the fundraisers and stuff, and then participated in other fundraisers that, that didn't stop the person from doing that, because some of that fundraising like went towards projects or whatever else. But there is that aspect of, there is a responsibility on your part to know and understand, okay, if I want to go on the next trip, I start saving now. I rework my budget to figure it out now. Like, what is it worth to you to take the gospel and allow God to use you to reach other people in another nation? If it's worth it to you, you can figure it out. There's
also ways that, like, if you're not physically able to go, that you can give. You can help sponsor maybe an individual that wants to go, or maybe you feel burdened by just the meal packing aspect of it, and you go, man, like, if I give like towards that, you're telling me 72 kids are going to be able to eat for free for a year, and what is it? 18,000? Is that what it costs a year to feed 72 kids for a year?
Yeah, so it's 18,000, and in that 18,000 though, the 3,600 discipleship fee is included. So it's more like 15,000 that's for the meals specifically.
Maybe through this conversation today, someone says, I want to I've got the money. I could sponsor meals for 72 kids for a year.
Be phenomenal.
Well, I know that there's people that are listening to this that have that money.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense and I'm just trying to challenge people because
look,
and you don't have to be a part of Southridge Church to make a difference through us and in the kingdom of God.
Yes.
If there's something that God is putting on your heart and kind of like pulling at those heartstrings to make something happen.
Yes.
I think so many times we get caught up and we are blessed beyond measure here in America. And you can go look in your pantry and you literally have a year's worth of food in your pantry, in your freezer. You don't have to go grocery shopping for a year if you so choose. And you could say, you know what, I'm going to take that money and I'm just going to sponsor some kids. Or it could just be half of that. It could just be 25% of the cost. Whatever the Lord has put on your heart, there is things that you can do to help. Maybe you just say, you know what? Maybe God just says I should give $1,000 towards that. I'm giving people the opportunity to be obedient and do that. And one of the ways that you can do that is you can go to src.life. It'll fast forward you to our landing page, and there's a tab that says giving. And then in that page, there's a drop down that goes to our missions fund.
Yeah.
And you can help literally change the lives of individuals in a community, but then also provide hope in an area that has very little.
Yeah.
And that is through that local church there, through the story club, through the meals, through possible future ventures of building a playground in another area, to where it does open up the doors for us to be able to share the gospel and Jesus with people that just don't have access to it.
Right. And I'll say, like, if you are a pastor of another church and you've been wanting to figure out a missions partner, reach out to us because I can connect you. You can do a vision trip like what we did. And on a vision trip, all you have to do is pay for your flight.
Yeah.
And you get to come and experience it, see what's going on with your own eyes for free, and figure out if that is something that you want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I think like that's how this thing grows, is through people getting on board. I mean, we've seen a nonprofit already grow out of this trip. And so it's just really cool to see, and I can't wait to see what else. But yeah, if you are interested and you're not with our church, but you think, hey, this sounds really cool, let us know. Or, I mean, you can look them up online, let them know, hey, I listened to this podcast and they talked about this vision trip. How do I do this? They'll get you set up.
Yeah. Tell everybody your email.
Cheryl with a C, CHERYL @southridge.org.
I'll put it in the show notes as well, just so people, it's easy for them to click. But if they're listening while they're driving or whatever, it is time for our mystery meet. Sounds like Las Chacras there whenever Scott was there.
Listen, we have to, you've heard him talk about how picky he is about things. The food they give us is amazing.
I know.
Listen,
I just want to go for the food.
Food's good.
Mystery meat question. What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done in public but can laugh about now? I learned to keep my mouth shut, obviously. I've done a really good job of learning this, by the way. But so one of the things that has happened ever since, like, I've given my life to Jesus, like, I've always just, I don't have a problem with, like, talking to people.
Yeah.
I have a problem, like, connecting, but I don't have a problem with talking. Mm-hmm. So, because I can talk to anybody, but it's a lot of the times the connecting aspect of it, just because I'm a goofball. I get it. And it's hard, you know, but so I don't mind chatting with people, but I asked this lady when her baby was due and she was not pregnant. That was very embarrassing.
For you or for her?
I think for all parties involved.
Yes.
And I realized to not do that ever.
Okay.
But I was young.
Along those same lines. So you used to wait tables, right?
Yeah.
Some waiting tables. And there was this woman that she had a full gray head of hair, like fully gray hair, has this baby in a car seat up on the table. And I come up and I say, "Oh, your grandbaby is so cute."
Yeah. The death stare that you probably got. Oh,
that's my baby. I went in the kitchen and I asked somebody else to take over the table because I couldn't go back. I could not go back to that table. Yeah. I refused. I was like, she hates me now. She will, like, I knew I wasn't getting a tip from her. I was like, no, somebody else please take it, because I was mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, I just totally stare. I mean, but I'm telling you, if you just saw her, anyone would have thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure. Like, it was wild.
And was that here in West Virginia?
Yeah, I was in Huntington.
Dude, one of the things that I've noticed about West Virginia is we are a different breed of individuals. I met somebody the other day that I could have swore was 60 years old. And they're like, yeah, man, I'm your age. And I was like, what's our age? I was like, how old do you think that I am? And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, dude, there ain't no way I've got a 10-year-old, dude. Mm-hmm. And he was like, no, we're the same age. I said, bruh, I'm not 55, 60 years old. He goes, I'm 38. I go, oh my gosh.
Oh man. Yeah, it is. Like, I think it's some of the rough living. Like that, you know, we live in I know it's everywhere, but we do live in an area where there is a lot of substance abuse disorder or substance use disorders. Substance abuse disorder. Okay. Anyway, we had our training.
People that do drugs.
We had our recovery ally training. I'm trying to get it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of that go on, and then I think it's also like, you know, I think here in our little country area, we're just like, sunscreen's optional, you know what I mean? And so you have people getting blisters out there and then doing it again, and that really affects your skin and all of that in the future. And so, like, I mean, I wish I'd have known some of those things when I was little and going out lathering up with baby oil to lay out. Like, I mean, I used to get so dark in the summer, and then, like, I've had moles removed and I'm like, nope, we're using the sunscreen now. But
dude, Erica is the same way, and she doesn't put on sunscreen because she's like half Latina, and so she still has sun, like a burn, or like her tan lines from last year on her back. Yes. Gosh. I mean, she was out there putting like peanut oil on, like just slow cooking.
See, I think once you have like a scare with a mole or something like that, like, you just look at things differently. But yeah, I think between, I mean, the sun and the stuff, like, I have seen that there are definitely a lot of people that look a lot older than what they actually are.
Yeah.
And I've just learned, I think in general, you don't judge somebody by the way that they look as far as age goes or pregnancy goes.
Yeah.
Or
yeah. So practical next step on this would be keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
Don't guess at that.
Haga silencia tu boca.
All right. I enjoyed this conversation. I looked at the time and I was like, it doesn't feel like that much time has passed.
Oh.
But if you've stuck with us, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
It's so good to celebrate what God is doing. And I will never apologize for talking about the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God. And I don't care how long this episode takes, or any future episode takes, about celebrating what God is doing, not only through the lives of the individuals that go on these missions trips from Southridge, but also what's happening in the lives of the individuals in Las Chacras, in Los Valencias, or whatever the name. I can't remember the name for. I got it close, right?
Vicente?
No, the name of the cities that y'all went to. I know Vicente.
El Tomatal.
El Tomatal.
And Quebrada Grande.
Yep, him too. I won't remember by the time I say get out of here. We'll see you next time.
Tomato and Grande. Big tomato places.
Big tomato.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week for another episode. You'll have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. And you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.